Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast that brings you the latest news and in-depth analysis from around the world. I'm your host, Walter, and we're glad you're joining us today. As we dive into our first segment, we want to take a closer look at the ongoing situation in Gaza. The conflict between Israel and Palestinian militants has been escalating, with reports of widespread destruction, displacement, and humanitarian crises. According to recent updates, at least 23 people have been killed in Gaza, and minimal aid has been allowed to enter the region. We've also seen developments on the diplomatic front, with Israeli officials facing criticism for linking a fatal shooting in Washington, D.C., to critics of Israel's actions in Gaza. The international community is calling for a peaceful resolution to the conflict, with many emphasizing the need for diplomacy and humanitarian aid. To provide some context, we've been following reports from France 24, which highlight the devastating conditions faced by civilians, particularly children, in war-torn Gaza. The situation is being described as absolutely horrifying, with children facing disease, starvation, bombardment, poor hygiene, and sanitation. It's essential to acknowledge the complexity of this issue and the diverse perspectives involved. We strive to provide a balanced view, recognizing the concerns and experiences of all parties affected by the conflict. As we continue to monitor the situation, we'll be exploring different aspects of the crisis, including the political, social, and humanitarian implications. We'll also be discussing the role of international diplomacy and the potential paths forward towards a peaceful resolution. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're glad you're still with us as we dive into the latest developments from around the world. Today, we're focusing on the escalating conflict in South Sudan and the recent attempts by the Trump administration to deport individuals to this volatile region. As we've been following, the situation in South Sudan has been deteriorating rapidly, with reports of indiscriminate aerial bombardments, ground offensives, and targeted attacks on civilian-populated areas. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, has urged all parties involved to pull back from the brink and warned that the human rights situation risks further deterioration as fighting intensifies. Meanwhile, in a separate but related development, a federal court ruling has halted the Trump administration's attempt to deport 8 men to South Sudan. The group, which includes individuals from various countries, including Myanmar, Cuba, Vietnam, Laos, Mexico, and South Sudan, was initially set to be flown to South Sudan on Tuesday. However, the court intervened, citing concerns over the brief window allowed for the men to object to their transfer and the potential risks they may face in the destination country. It's essential to note that the Trump administration has been criticized for its deportation policies, particularly when it comes to sending individuals to countries with questionable human rights records. The situation highlights the complexities of international relations, human rights, and the delicate balance between national security and individual freedoms. As we continue to monitor the situation in South Sudan and the ongoing debates surrounding deportation policies, it's crucial to consider multiple perspectives and prioritize empathy and understanding. We must recognize the inherent dignity and worth of all individuals, regardless of their nationality or circumstances, and strive for solutions that promote peace, stability, and human rights for all. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block, folks. We're wrapping up today's show with a look at the latest developments in the Middle East, where U.S. President Donald Trump has been making waves with his recent policies. From lifting sanctions on Syria to negotiating with Iran, it's clear that Trump is taking a different approach to the region. Now, some analysts argue that this represents a significant break from the past, with Trump prioritizing transactional relationships over traditional alliances and values-based diplomacy. Others, however, see more continuity than change, pointing out that every U.S. administration has sought to maintain good relations with key regional players like Saudi Arabia. To break it down further, we can look at the specifics of Trump's policies. For example, his decision to lift sanctions on Syria has been seen as a win for countries like Turkey and Saudi Arabia, which are looking to invest in the country's reconstruction. At the same time, it's been criticized by others who argue that it will only embolden the Syrian regime and its allies. Meanwhile, Trump's efforts to negotiate with Iran have been met with a mix of skepticism and optimism. Some see it as a potential opportunity for a paradigm shift in U.S.-Iran relations, while others worry that it could lead to a loss of leverage for the U.S. or even military conflict. As we consider these developments, it's essential to keep in mind the complex web of interests and alliances at play in the Middle East. From the Gulf states to Israel, Turkey, and Iran, each country has its own unique priorities and agendas. And as the U.S. navigates this landscape, it must balance its own interests with the need to promote stability and security in the region. So, what does it all mean? Is Trump's approach a bold new direction, or just more of the same? Ultimately, that's for our listeners to decide. One thing is certain, though: the Middle East remains a critical region, and U.S. policy there will have far-reaching consequences. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, stay informed.